Hello and welcome everyone. This is Lady Luck 34 and today we're doing a check-in on my fountain pens. So we're going to do a currently inked. All of these pens right here do have ink in them at this moment in time. I will caveat, I know some of the more common stationery and fountain pen users might do currently inked every month. And while I might record one every month, the reality is not all of my pens will have new inks every month. So let's go through what we've got. Now, these are going to be in order of acquisition. So what I had first, besides I do have one Platinum Preppy, it is not currently inked, that I have had for quite a number of years. And it's only in the last, I'd say, year and a half that I've really gotten back into, or gotten more into fountain pens. So we are going to start off first with the Kaweco Student in a transparent clear. The Kaweco brand is from based in Germany, and I have loved this pen. I think it sometimes is misleading that it's called the Student, that people think it's maybe meant more as an entry level, but it is a lovely pen. Here we go, Kaweco Student in transparent with a fine nib. I also quite like their system for the pens here where I can swap out the nibs. I used a medium for a while, and it's quite easy to change them out as you need to. And then this ink, which is a sample that is a gift from a friend. We did a sample exchange, a couple of us earlier this year, is the Pilot Roshizuku Mosu. Now I'm going to hold it up. Don't know quite how well the camera is picking up all of the color and everything. But I find this to be not really a pink. It's more of a lighter red, which works really well for me. It gives you a bit of a distinction. We actually do have much more of a pink later on in our pens. So that's the first one to start us off. Next up is a LAMY Al-Star. I believe this is a 2025 specific colorway, which is aubergine. And I quite liked the contrast between the more sort of maroon-ish body with the highlighter grip. So, LAMY Al-Star in aubergine. This is an extra fine nib, and it is currently inked with diamine Tyrian purple. This is a bottled ink. It's one of the first bottles that I actually purchased around the time I think that I picked up this pen as well. So I don't always match the color of my ink to the color of my pen, but this is a fun one, and because I have a bottle of it, I don't have a problem keeping it inked for quite a long period of time. So that's our second pen. All right, the next one I have opinions on. This is the Monteverde Innova Ombre Fusion in Bliss. It's a lovely, pretty pen. It is heavier than I had expected, and I decided to stretch out of my comfort range and get a broad nib on this, and I have mixed feelings. I definitely aim more towards fine, extra fine, even mediums. And again, it's not a bad pen. It's more that I think I'm struggling to figure out the right, or I have been to figure out the right inks to go with the larger nib. And this is currently inked also with a sample from a different friend with Birmingham Pen Company's Water Wheel. I also think maybe part of the challenge I have with this pen in particular is, despite it being pretty and that I do at times find the broad nib to be useful, a lot of the writing I'm doing is in planners, in smaller form factors, and that means that the broad nib just isn't quite right for that. I imagine that going to maybe some notebooks and things where I'm not as space constrained and eventually getting a couple inks that feel more appropriate for the broad nib, that I will like it better. It also tends to dry out faster, at least as far as I've noticed, but that's just me. It's still a good pen. Definitely still using it. Next up was the first expensive pen that I really, really wanted. And it's probably no surprise to anybody. That is an Esterbrook Estie in the color Sea Glass. I felt it was so, so pretty, and I was so stoked to finally give myself permission to pick one up. And it's been on an interesting journey as well, through really my own fault. And that is because the first ink that I put in it was really not the best for, again, the majority of the writing I do. This is also a fine nib. And so it took me a while to work through that ink, and now I've got a much better ink selection. It's also a good match for the pen. This is again a sample from a friend with the Sailor Manio Kobe ink, which I actually really like this, and I feel like this is probably one that once I'm out of the sample, I will pick up this ink in a bottle. I fully expect that. You can kind of see it's just so lovely. So that's 4 pins down. Next up was a little bit of a, I don't want to say surprise. I wasn't sure about picking it up, but I ended up doing so because there was like a sale with a special discount, and I was like, the price is too good, I can't not when I've been considering it. And this is a Pelikan M200 in copper. And ironically, I actually have a really good matchy ink to go with it. So again, this is the Pelikan M200 in copper. I do like the sparkly of the body here. It is also a fine nib, and it is currently inked again with a sample from a friend with Alchemy Inks Molten Bronze. Again, quite a good fit with the sparkliness, despite not really being a sparkle or shimmer ink. A really good fit. I've just realized, y'all, that one of my lights went out, and that's why this side is weirdly dark. So sorry. Hopefully this is much better lighting now that I've realized that was out. Just, you know, just technical difficulties. But ended up actually really liking this. It wasn't as bulky nor as hefty in terms of weight as I thought it was going to be. It's actually relatively light and certainly much smaller, and I've been quite pleased with this one. In a completely opposite way, the next one is the Nahvalur Nautilus in Cephalopod Gold. And this one was funny because it was the complete opposite. I got it not that long after the Pelikan M200, where it is much larger than I thought, still relatively light compared to the size I was expecting, but not so light that it feels uncomfortable to hold. And like was interesting because it's my first pen that also doesn't post the cap. I also struggled because originally I was like, do I want the Cephalopod Gold? Do I want Cephalopod Silver? I tend to be more of a silver person, but the contrast of the gold against the black body, I couldn't not. So it's fine. And this is one where I don't know that I would say the ink matches, but it definitely works. Here we go, Nahvalur Nautilus in Cephalopod Gold. I believe this is also a fine nib. This ink is a bottled ink that I got as part of a mystery package. It's like I think the Atlas Stationers does a 3-bottle mystery pack. So you don't know what you're going to get. And I was actually quite pleased with the 3 inks that I got from it. That was also a gift. We're all very good enablers in my circle of friends. And this ink is the Graphon Fiber Castel, appropriately named Electric Pink. I really like this page. And you can see it in contrast to the Pilot Iroshizuku here at the top, the Kosumosu, is that really is like a lighter red, and this is a more appropriately named Electric Pink. So I've been quite pleased with this pin as well. Next up, I did fall prey to one of those special color versions of a pin with a single retailer, and that is the Kaweco Skyline Sport in Sea Spray that was available only over the summer through Gold Spot. Now, I love it. It's fabulous, but I already had a Kaweco Sport in Honey. I've been trying not to buy the exact same pins, but I couldn't resist. This was too pretty. And I really do like the portability of the Kaweco Sports. So it's not too bad a loss. This is a Skyline Sport in Sea Spray with an extra fine nib. And it is currently inked with a sample of Diamine Amazing Amethyst. So this one's actually quite funny. I stumbled across this ink sample in just like a random drawer of mine that I think I bought a number of years ago when I initially picked up my Platinum Preppy, and I didn't know anything about like fountain pens and inks and samples. And so I had a sample for a pen, or that I thought I was going to use the pen that I didn't have a converter for. And then I just like found it in random drawers, like, oh, where'd this come from? So I've had it for a while, but it is I would say a darker purple, at least on this paper. But again, I quite like it. I mean, I would say broadly, I find something to like about every one of my pens and the majority of my inks. So I'm not very technical. I couldn't tell you too much about them besides the pins and the nib sizes and whether I think they dry out super quickly or not. I'm still very much new to the hobby, and it's an ongoing learning curve, but I'm pleased with it. So next up, my last 2 pins are acquisitions from the Commonwealth Pin Show, which was a couple weekends ago. It was my first pin show, which was quite overwhelming, but very enjoyable. And a very kind gentleman that I was chatting with, I happened to look at this because I really liked the colors of it. And he was like, $5, you can have it. And this is the Delike New Moon. I don't know which New Moon, doesn't specify on it. And finding colorways is sometimes a little more challenging. So I believe that this was meant to be kind of a dupe of something like the Sailor Pro Gear. And I'd say it seems, from at least like a shape and a feel of the body, pretty similar. I don't have a Sailor Pro Gear or Pro Gear Slim, which is what I'll probably eventually buy, to say for sure how comparable it is, but that's what the internet has told me. So again, this is the Delike New Moon in an extra fine. And it is currently inked with a sample that I picked up at my local stationery store of Wearingle Wayfarer. Also an ink I really like, and I will probably eventually buy a bottle of. But I sample to start. I like, again, all of my inks and all of my pens in different ways, and some I just, for whatever reason, like a little bit better. So we are going to wrap up this currently inked with a, not a surprise, Pilot Vanishing Point in matte black. So this is, was fascinated by the idea of capless pens and that you could click it and it would come out for a fountain pen. And I took a look at a few different ones and ended up being like, yep, I see why everybody really likes the Pilot Vanishing Point. And this was also picked up at the Commonwealth Pen Show. I was quite pleased with what I was able to get it for. So it is inked with a kind of grayish black. I'd put it closer to a gray. Not dark enough to be a black. Pilot Vanishing Point. And matte black with a fine nib. I thought about the extra fine and then was like, nah, I think a fine will be more than good enough. This ink is, I'm going to say it terribly wrong. Please do not judge me or judge me. I probably should have looked at how to correctly pronounce this before recording this video, but it's Dominant Industry. It's one of their collections, and the title is in French. So let me write it out and spell correctly. So I believe it's Soleil couchant et traité. Again, not a French speaker. Please don't judge me too hard. But a lovely, I think like after I used it, I definitely, how I hold the pen determines how well it, how light or dark this ink comes out, how well it's flowing through and then giving me a lighter or darker kind of tone. But love the pen. I like the ink. And this one was a bottle. This was one of the other inks from my 3 mystery pack from Atlas Stationers. So that is going to wrap up all of our pins. Put it out where y'all can see them. Lovely, lovely, lovely pins. And our various inks of this currently inked, which is not quite mid-October, maybe mid-October by the time I actually get the video live. So thank you all so much for joining me. As I mentioned before, probably as I do a currently inked of my pens, only a few of them will change from video to video because I'm writing as much as I can, but these are a large number. I kind of anticipate that the Esterbrook, the Pelikan, and the Nahvalur will probably be the 3 that are lowest and most likely to have new inks next time, but you never know. We'll see how it goes. So thank you so much for joining me. Please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe for a wide range of topics, anywhere from fountain pens, planners, journals, book reviews, video games, and a whole lot of nonsense. So thank you all. Have a good one, and I'll see you in the future.